We're going to bring you our special guest, Dr. Thelma Jones, today. You're watching Surviving the Diagnosis. I'm Peggy Mangan, Sandy Conkar, Dr. Jones. Dr. Jones is on her mic, and I think we're going to just let you go ahead with your presentation. I'm so excited to hear it because when we did the interview with you, it was so amazing, the wealth of information relative to supplementing and diet cancer survivors. And I'm just very excited. So we'll just let you take it away, Doctor.
I call this a healing toolkit because I like to approach it from the point of view of healing. Everything I say is meant to be positive. When I say certain things to avoid, what I'm really talking about is setting the stage for what you can do. Okay? So that said, let's talk a little bit about my philosophy on healing. I believe, this is my belief, health is a self-help process, but not a do-it-yourself project. It's very important that people understand that what we're doing requires guidance. And so the point of what I'm going to talk about is all the things that I have done in integrative medicine for so many years. I just want to make a disclaimer. It's very important. I am an MD, so I have to make this disclaimer. Nothing I'm saying is designed to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any illness. It's nothing I'm saying is meant to contradict your healthcare provider, and you have to follow his or her instructions. In my day and age, we didn't have a her. People will hear different things about what works and doesn't work, and I invite people to feel free to follow their own conclusions, of course, exploring them. We share certain characteristics, all of us, and this is the essence of what I do. Each person is unique. Each person has their own story and requires individual guidance, and what I'm saying actually is general guidelines. They're not necessarily specific. Again, always follow the advice of your healthcare practitioner. That said, we can talk a little bit about cancer. At another time, I can get a little bit more into what cancer actually is and the process. I think that's very important because the concepts of how cancer cells form is evolving constantly. But cancer is a disease of modern living. It's related to lifestyle factors. I know people have heard this over and over and over again. Maybe I have a little different take on it. Maybe it's worthwhile hearing again. When I was in teaching residents, I always repeated because the first time you hear it one way, the second time another way, so perceptions change. So cancer, I believe, can be viewed as a chronic disease like diabetes and heart disease. It can be a chronic illness. I see it the same way. I think that makes it less scary. Now, here's some of the causes of cancer I'm going to talk about. Cancer is more attributable, interestingly, to environmental factors than what we eat and how we think, very important, than attributable to genetics. People are making a very big deal of genetics these days, and I think that it goes beyond that. These are the main causes of cancer, and each one of these is a seminar in and of itself. Inflammation, I think people know if you hurt yourself and you turn red on your skin, that's inflammation. It's the cause of most illnesses, cancer, heart disease, dementia, all of that. And external, internal toxins, I'll explain that in a minute, are primary causes, as well as nutritional deficiencies or excesses and stress. And we're going to talk about the relationship in a little bit. Here are some of the external causes, and we're talking more about food, but these are worthwhile mentioning. Household cleaners, and a government study actually showed that women who work in the home may have a 45% higher incidence of breast cancer. When I say this, I mean that's statistics. We do something about it. That doesn't have to happen. I want to reduce the trauma. The air we breathe, of course, tap water, chlorine, inflammatory chemicals and fat, and we'll talk about obesity, pesticides, major cause of breast cancer, as well as mercury. Now, our internal toxins are our thoughts. That's what I call internal toxins. We now know that what we think, we become. Obesity, people who are obese, that's a major cause of all illnesses, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, because inflammation causes illnesses, and we find inflammatory chemicals in fat tissue. Now, here are some of the concepts that I think are very important well before I lived. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, said, Let thy food be thy medicine, and thy medicine be thy food. And that is true for everything. So, when we talk about nutrition, we talk about diet and supplements. And I always emphasize supplements supplement the diet. The diet is the basic foundation. This is what comprises nutrition. Now, this is important. Nutritional excesses and or deficiencies contribute to 85 to 95% of all illnesses. I'm going to repeat that. Nutritional excesses or deficiencies contribute to 85 to 95% of all illnesses. This is key. This means we have control. I'm talking about appropriate control, and you'll see why feeling in control is very important. And the next point I want to make is the foods to avoid. Sugar. Sugar of any kind feeds cancer. It increases inflammation and increases insulin. Insulin is what we call pro-inflammatory, causes inflammation. It's atherogenic, causes arteriosclerosis, okay, and carcinogenic. We'll see here when we're talking about cancer that this is the audience. It really applies to almost every other illness you want to try and prevent. And some of the other foods that you want to avoid include white foods, rice, white flour, GMOs, genetically modified foods, is a big controversial issue. Trans fats, as we know, anything that's not organic, because that has pesticides. High fructose corn syrup, and there's the dirty dozen, which I think Sandy and Peggy would put that up on the offline, and so people can see the dirty dozen. Anything is packaged, dairy and gluten, because yes, and acid-containing foods, because cancer cells prefer an acid environment. Now, moving on, we can see that the foods to eat are under certain categories. Decreasing inflammation, we're going to have themes here. They're antioxidants, they prevent free radicals, which increase the risk of cancer. And they help our immune system, because a suppressed immune system contributes to cancer. Among other things, there are many. We'll see that cancer is not just one thing. Everything we're talking about is a holistic combination of approaches. The foods I do recommend are organic, because pesticides are carcinogenic. They also cause obesity, by the way. Those that are dairy-free, and alkaline. Let me explain that. Alkaline means a pH. I don't know how many people have science environment, but a pH is whether it's acid or alkaline. The alkaline pH, if you do a urine, is about 7. I always aim for having people have an alkaline environment. Cancer cells cannot thrive in an alkaline environment. So you see what we're moving in everything is from what feeds cancer to what prevents it. So we're transitioning. I like that word because change for many people is scary, the word change. So I use the word transition. It seems to be an easier flow, and I do that very much. Cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and spinach. Nuts has 50 micrograms of selenium, so if you have 4, you're getting 200 micrograms is what you need in a day. Okay, looking at your supplements, cashews and hazelnuts, macadamia nuts and pecans are all great. Pine nuts and walnuts are rich in the omega-3s. Stress. We had a little bit of that now. Just
I think we had that this morning, Dr. Jones.
Yes, trying to get on. It was quite a journey, by the way. I think it was a journey. Yeah. I actually did some of the ask and receive for that. I know you do tapping and matrix re-imprinting, and I just like all of them combined. And let's a brief definition of stress, and that's another seminar as well. Anything under which we feel we have no control is a good definition of stress. And actually, if we look at what is in our environment, it's the way we perceive it. It's to the eyes of the beholder. What stresses you may not stress me. I'm sure we both stressed out this morning. Now,
yes,
there are good bad stressors. I comment on that briefly. There are 2 gentlemen who did the Holmes Rahe scale. You don't have to remember that. I can certainly amplify this for anyone. And they gave points to how stresses create illness, number of points. High up on the points were not only loss or grief or all of those things, but moving to a new house, having a child, getting married, were all high up in terms of when you add them up, what can create illness. Again, this is without intervention. Okay. So next what we're going to talk about, why we're talking about stress and nutrition. They're both important here. Stress is a major contributing factor to the onset and worsening of most illnesses. Stress is a major contributing factor to the onset and worsening of most illnesses. Remember, we talked about the importance of nutrition. So that's why we're talking about EFT and nutrition together. Stress increases inflammation. It's been demonstrated that chemicals causing inflammation go up with stress. It's been demonstrated. This is not nebulous anymore. And inflammation, we said, causes, as we know, most illnesses. And that's why what we're going to talk about now is EFT a little bit. We talk a little bit about nutrition. Well, EFT, or energy psychology, or emotional acupuncture, so to speak, changes neural pathways. When we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. And that changes our perceptions, which can change how we look at an environment around us. And it gives a sense of appropriate control. I mentioned that before, and if we move on, we'll see why I'm mentioning that. It's extremely important. And when I talk about appropriate control, I mean, not being a control freak. I love this slide, by the way.
Yeah, this is great.
That helplessness, feeling out of control.
Yes.
There was a study that shows helplessness, the feeling of helplessness or feeling like a victim, adversely affects cancer and the growth of cancer. Look at how our emotions are involved here. This is no longer nebulous, okay? So if one feels like a victim, it's going to make a big difference in how we approach it. Cancer, and this is what I ask people, do you see yourself as a cancer patient or a patient with cancer? They're two different concepts. There was actually a study where rats were shocked. There was a control group. One group was shocked and could escape, and the other group was shocked and couldn't escape. Where do you think the implanted tumors grew the most? Those who had no escape, the sense of helplessness.
Yeah.
So the next thing that we're going to do is talk about another emotion, which is depression, which we deal with EFT and energy psychology. Depression itself is a state of inflammation. Do we have a theme? Inflammation increases illnesses. Inflammatory chemicals are elevated in depression, documented.
Wow.
So, and the next thing we're going to talk about is grief and fear. And when we talk about documenting, I'm talking about studies. I've been in scientific medicine for a long time, 40 years, 30 years in traditional oncology and hematology. These things weren't, people didn't realize that back then. My belief is you get to the core issue so you perceive it differently. There are grief hormones on the immune cells. They're called endorphins. The jogger's high, when you jog.
Mm-hmm.
The endorphins are found on immune cells. People who undergo a loss, I've seen many times, it doesn't mean if you have a loss, which will happen, but many people undergo loss will have immune suppression and develop cancer and other illnesses. It's pretty interesting fact, okay? So,
yes, it is.
I'm talking about relieving stress with and we have no proof now. We know it changes neural pathways. We have no proof now that EFT alone reduces inflammation, but I would guess that can be shown sometime, that EFT, by reducing stress or perceiving it, may lead to a reduction in inflammation. Makes sense, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
We just, this I love, and I have a personal reason for liking this. EFT and nutrition are like what we call epigenetic twins. This means epigenetics means outside of when you can influence genetic expression, and I'll explain that, by nutrition and our thoughts. They're outside our cell and they influence what's going on in the cell. And then our thoughts can change our DNA in 2 to 3 seconds. So you can see when you talk about thoughts or EFT, you can change genetic expression. And there's a field called nutrigenomics, which can change genetic expression. What I mean by that is we're born with certain genes. Okay? Genes determine how we're made. Lifestyle guides our fate. The gene turns on. Okay? You get an illness. You can turn that off, the switch. That's genetic expression when you with nutrition and EFT, and that's why I call them epigenetic twins. I coined that. I like it. And next what we're going to talk about is the switch. This is what we just talked about. This is so astounding. I get passionate when I talk about it. There was a study done on prostate cancer patients. This blew my mind. I mean, I understood the concept. They not subjected them, but they gave them lifestyle changes, some of what we're talking about, and they dealt with stress, meditation, and other things. For me, the major thing is the energy psychology. I'm sure, Peggy, you won't disagree with me on that.
No, I will not. I've been
Okay.
doing EFT ever since I was out of the bone marrow transplant unit.
Oh, I thought it was when you were born, but that's okay. So that's why I put stress and nutrition together. When they lowered their stress levels in a few months and they gave them proper nutrition and lifestyle changes, they changed for the better 500 genes. We can change our genetic. We're not predetermined to get anything.
Wow,
I
that's
don't take no
amazing.
anyway, so we're not predetermined to get anything.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Now, supplements supplement the diet, and I'll be very careful about what I say about this. There's many ways of looking at supplements. One is supplements to replace what stress depletes, because stress depletes supplements. People who are under stress have do not have these the same ability to hold on to certain nutrition. So there are supplements that actually decrease stress, which I could feel can be combined with the energy psychology. There are supplements that replace nutritional deficiencies. If you look at there are studies that have shown that if you look at the nutritional value of foods now compared to 1975, and there's a whole list. There's 50%, 45% less nutritional value, vitamin A, vitamin C, in our present day food. Our soil is depleted and there are pesticides. It's a different ball game here. And supplements actually detox. That's the way we look at supplements. I hope I'm at a good pace that you're comfortable with it. Okay.
Yes, yes, very
Vitamin
good.
D is really a hormone made from the action of sunlight on the skin. Vitamin D deficiency plays a major role in the causation of cancer, heart disease, dementia, and increased incidence of asthma in children. We'll talk a little bit now about what vitamin D does. Vitamin D affects all parts of the carcinogenic process. Cancer, we can talk about another time, has a process. It's an initiation, it's promoting, it's changing the cell, certain things in the cell and DNA and spread. Vitamin D affects positively all parts of the carcinogenic process. It decreases inflammation, decreases insulin resistance, which we discussed. It boosts immunity, all important for cancer. And I want to comment, when you use vitamin D, you have to add vitamin K. That's why I talk about this is not it's not a do-it-yourself project. You have to know what you're taking in supplements. People come with all kinds of supplements. You have to know how to combine them and what's good for you. Now, vitamin D can be measured. I always measure it. I think most doctors are doing that nowadays. The range is 30 to 100. 30 to 50 is too low, even though it's normal. This is from what I've read. I believe it's true, but you can explore it. 50 to 70 would be more ideal. Over 80, there's an institute that showed over 80 may kill cancer cells. And of course, you have less vitamin D in the winter because you're not making vitamin D from the sun, particularly in the northern latitude.
Yeah, I'm up here in Michigan, but I do supplement, Dr. Jones. I do.
Yeah. Well, I think you'll see the vast majority of people are deficient in vitamin D. I've seen most people I see with cancer, breast cancer, have vitamin D levels under 20, but you can change it. What's interesting is you have a value that shouldn't be scary. You can change it. This can be changed. I'm using my hands. It can be changed. We have so much influence over all of these things we're talking about. Iodine is a big one. Iodine deficiency plays a major role in cancer causation. I have yet to see somebody who's not iodine deficient. Now, this is a controversial topic. I'll say that right now. But we know what iodine does. It turns off cancer genes. It turns on apoptosis, which is programmed cell death. Our cells, their lifespan is finite. They die. Cancer cells are immortal. So you want to kill those cancer cells. The next thing about iodine that we can talk about is there are iodine receptors, not only in the thyroid. Most people know that, I think, but in breasts and ovaries. Iodine can actually reverse fibrocystic breasts. Again, there'll be people you may be talking to who disagree with this. This is a lot of what the literature shows, but it's more in the integrative literature than in traditional medicine. So it's very important. Actually, vitamin D and iodine are my two favorites in terms of breast cancer prevention. And by the way, when I talk about breast cancer, a lot goes for prostate. It's very similar, okay? Iodine can be measured. Is an appropriate replacement given? There is scientific evidence. I think when you take vitamin D, in most cases, you should look at selenium as well. This is why you can't do it yourself. I wouldn't go out and buy seaweed. Some of it's contaminated. There's specific supplements. There are contraindications to taking iodine, one of which, relatively speaking, is what we call Hashimoto's or autoimmune thyroiditis. I just wanted to mention that. I think that was important. Now, I mentioned supplements supplement the diet. That said, let's look at some other supplements key in cancer protection. The three biggies are resveratrol, green tea, and curcumin. Resveratrol, I'm using a specific brand. I don't want to get into it. It will be on the site because it's patented and has other things in it. Not all supplements are created equal. I like to paraphrase. Not all men are created equal. Declaration of Independence. Not all supplements are created equal. It's found in red wine. It's a potent anti-inflammatory. It's an antioxidant, preventing cancer. It's anti-aging. And why is this important? And there's a process by which cells age, and you can reverse that, because when you have aging, you have chronic disease. When it's anti-aging, you decrease the risk of the diseases of aging, including cancer and heart disease. It's a major player in the prevention of cancer. It affects DNA and mitochondria. There are other things that it affects, but I won't get into it now. And the next major player is green tea. Organic, has to be organic. It has been said to be possibly the #1 cancer-fighting beverage. It's really one of my favorites. I don't particularly like the color green, but green tea is one of my favorites. It enables.
Mine too.
What? You like it?
I do. I drink green tea all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have learned, I've done a lot of studying into the nutrition aspect of getting well, and green tea is right up there.
Yeah, the ECGC is a compound in it. It also helps with weight loss if anyone's interested. Obesity is a major player in cancer, and so dealing with that and the inflammation is important. It enables the immune system to search for and destroy cancer cells, and it helps repair DNA.
Right.
It's interesting. These are some of the things I'll read off because it's too much to go into. It increases cell death, or that apoptosis I talked about. It's anti-inflammatory, antioxidant. It detoxifies. Polyphenols or other things. It's not relevant for now. ECGC. These are possible in studies. It may lower PSA levels in men. It may decrease tumor growth. It may inhibit the growth of breast cancer. It may decrease the spread of this cancer to lungs. And it may decrease the risk of pancreatic studies. These are isolated studies, and I think we need more information, but it's very suggestive of the importance of green tea.
Yeah.
There is a Japanese research study that showed green tea may increase the concentrations of certain chemotherapy agents, be synergistic or work together with chemotherapy, and may reduce the toxicity of chemotherapy. So as we get to the next slide, what I want to talk about is supplements and the use of supplements. We'll go to that in a minute. The use of supplements and chemotherapeutic agents has been a no-no. There is a lot of data now that shows that certain supplements can augment chemotherapy, but nobody should do it on their own. You have to know what you're doing. And there's still a lot of controversy about it, but there's more and more data that they can act synergistically, reduce the side effects of chemo. But one has to be very careful, and again, you have to work with your healthcare practitioner. If the person says you can't do it, I think you have to listen to that person and also follow your gut feeling. I believe in gut feelings, but I'm talking about science. Antioxidant, another major player. By the way, it's great for the brain. It's great for preventing inflammation. It goes to dementia as well. See, you're affecting a lot here. DIM, diindole methane, helps the formation of healthy estrogens. It's found in cruciferous vegetables. There's something called I3C in cruciferous vegetables that goes to DIM, and there are supplements that I use. It changes. Estrogens are broken down into good and bad estrogens. So anyone on hormones or anyone with any estrogen, I think every woman should have it measured. They're called 2s/16s. Again, that's for another time. But it helps you get the better estrogens. So if you're looking at the estrogen receptor in breast tissue, you're not going to do the harm if you're dealing with healthy estrogens. The bad estrogens will do that. It also protects the estrogen receptor as well. As a matter of fact, some people think it's it does what tamoxifen does in protecting the receptor. Again, I'm not telling one to go out and do this. I'm going to talk about a supplement that I use, which increases interferon. Interferon is used in MS and in hepatitis C. Interferon is a major player in the immune system and in reducing viruses. Viruses have been shown to play a very important role in cancer, but we're talking about nutrition now. It increases the immune system, which fights cancer, and it may reduce the cancer-causing viruses. By the way, mental health issues may reduce the viruses. This was a Cornell study that showed it increased natural killer cells. Natural killer cells fight cancer. This is a reputable university that's studying this. And I use it, but I don't want to get into this right now, but I can discuss it certainly because I can't leave it out because I use it as part of my armamentarium. And the next thing that's important are the supplements. I can't go into all of them. Magnesium. Magnesium is anti-inflammatory. 85% or so of people are deficient in magnesium. It's relaxing. It plays a role in almost any chemical process in the body. It's very, very, very important. In depression, anxiety, of course, that's related to what we're talking about. Zinc, very important for the immune system. People may take zinc when they get colds. I have a caution here. You can't just go out and buy any magnesium. They're not all absorbed well. You have to know a magnesium to calcium ratio. Zinc also, you have to use a certain type, and there's a zinc to copper ratio. If you have too much copper, you deplete zinc. This is how the body works. It's in balance. So we have to balance what we put into it. Fish oil is a major player, very anti-inflammatory, been shown to reduce the risk of cancer, prevent cancer. When I'm talking about prevention, I'm talking about prevention of recurrence as well. People on chemo may need a little bit take on some of these. Some of these things may not interfere with chemotherapy, but you have to follow the advice of your healthcare practitioner. Fish oils have been used in depression, and actually is very useful for the brain. Very useful. Mushrooms, I mentioned, they have something with the immune system. And CoQ10 is something that increases the energy in our cells and mitochondria, which actually has been studied in metastatic breast cancer, but I don't want to get into that study right now, but it has been studied. So I'm talking about what's been studied.
Okay, wow.
I hope we're absorbing all of this. It's a lot of stuff.
I'm taking notes, but I'm sure I didn't get them all, but it's amazing. It's fascinating.
Well,
Thank you so much. It's great.
You know, it's not meant for people to say, I'm memorizing all of this. It's to give information and come away with a few things you remember, but I have options. I have choice now. Look at what I can do. That's the essence of what I'm saying.
Yes, yes, that's
science.
amazing.
That's why I want people to know this. This causes that, but but they haven't done anything about it. You're
right.
Just because of this, but what steps could you take? Like the Holmes Rahe, you don't have to build up those points. If you use energy psychology and you use nutrition, that when you replace nutrition, you reduce stress. Just as stress depletes nutrients. So supplements and chemotherapy, I talked about, are controversial. I can't get into it now. That's something that there's, as I said, more evidence for. It must be discussed with your healthcare practitioner. I know that many oncologists are opposed to it. There are some that don't mind it. And that's another open discussion. I don't want to get into too much controversy here. What I'm talking about is my beliefs based on solid science. That doesn't mean I know everything. Sometimes I wish my kids thought I did, but it doesn't mean I know everything. But I feel I'm very discerning, and I'm a hard sell. I don't believe everything until I see it happening in my practice with this data, and that's very important. I don't think because I do holistic work, they just grab something, and I think any good holistic practitioner will do that, that you need to have some information. It's a convincer strategy. I've done NLP. They have a convincer strategy. The convincer strategy for me is studies, what I see work in my practice. There are a lot of testimonials, and I think they're valid, and I'm not negating them. It's not my convincer strategy. But that's okay. I'm not negating it. The brand matters. About 85% of supplements out there don't have what's on the label. They have contaminants, and there are websites that will show that. Even some reputable companies do not have what they say on the label. It has contaminants. You have to have balance. Like if you don't balance B vitamins, you're going to deplete some. You really have to have a knowledge of what are some good brands, and I use a lot of different companies.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
So really what I'm talking about is feeling empowered. That's a commonly thrown around word, you know, feeling empowered. We talked about helplessness. Just the diagnosis is a trauma.
Yes.
Okay? Because the concept is, I think there's more than one way. People can choose any way they want. I gave chemotherapy for lymphomas and cancer, and I gave chemotherapy and saw great results. It's important. I don't do that now. I'm in the age where I don't want to do that. But I'm not negating anything, but feeling empowered, and that's knowing you have options and choice, is a stress reliever for me in and of itself. I think it's extremely important.
I think that is absolutely true, Dr. Jones. When I got diagnosed, it was the doctors just wanted me to get this one particular therapy, and I had to do some research, and you know, I felt better about going with the alternative, and ended up doing very well. So I guess it was a good choice.
It's a choice, and you have to know. I mean, I don't want to get too much into it, but I always look at pathology and where is this spread and what the nature of the cancer is. I think what's most important in my world, it's not everybody's world, is educating. If people understand what's happening to them and then what you could do about it, then they have choices. And there's a lot of conflict. There's a lot of family stuff.
Yeah.
Often families feel a different way, and sometimes important to explain to families is each person is unique. I keep saying it over and over again. We share certain things, stress, anxiety. We perceive the world certain ways, but everybody has their own story.
Right.
And it's where we came from as children. You know, it's just how we were brought up and what our beliefs are. I think you may be aware that under the age of 5, we're essentially in the brainwave of a hypnotic trance. So we're highly suggestible. So our beliefs become facts and reality, and we live with a lot of distorted beliefs, and a lot of distorted beliefs are related to the concept of cancer and illness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think eating well, I think when you look at what's out there, eating well is a challenge, and it takes time. And that's why I talk about supplements. I don't believe you can get everything in diet alone. But again, I always say people can take as many supplements as they can put in their mouth in a day and what they can afford. And then you prioritize them. What's important for that person?
Right.
You know, multivitamin, a good multivitamin is essential for everyone. Actually, there was an article in what was it, traditional, I think it was JAMA, medical, doctors read that, many, many years ago, more than I care to say. And they had they talked about 25% reduction in breast cancer, you know, with certain supplements, even with apples. Red delicious apples are great. Now we talk about, I might mention a little bit about the dirty dozen. I don't know if you want me to mention it briefly. Let me just mention briefly some alkaline foods. Some alkalizing food would be all vegetables, practically all fruits. Actually, blueberries are not. Certain grains, quinoa might be an adequate substitute for the gluten-containing. Certain nuts are, not all of them. Milk, I don't like milk. Eggs, I didn't mention eggs. Eggs are a great food. Wonderful food. Eggs have lutein in it, a carotenoid, which is wonderful for heart disease and cancer. I'm not a fan, personally, of yogurt. I think those are the certain meats tend to be more acidic. So those are more alkaline foods. When we talk about the gluten-free diet, I think you have to be careful and read labels because soy sauce and other foods have that in it as well. Okay, so we have me not slides. I'd hide behind the slides.
Yeah, fascinating. That is just so fascinating. I just want to break in a minute and tell our listeners that You're watching Dr. Thelma Jones on Surviving the Diagnosis with Sandy Conkar and Peggy Mangan. Sandy is having some technical difficulties this morning, so you can maybe see her in the corner there, but she comes in and out. So, but Dr. Jones has just presented a wealth of information here, and if any of our listeners have any questions, you can post it on Facebook. Otherwise, I think we have a few more minutes, Dr. Jones, and
I don't mean to interrupt. I mixed Sandy. She abandoned us, and that's very stressful.
Say that again. You miss her?
She abandoned us, and that's a big stressor here.
Yeah, she's really gone through the stress this morning. I feel so bad for her. Yeah, I think we're going to have to tap when the show's over.
She's coping. I think if people have any questions or want to reach me, I do Skype and phone conversations. I can't give medical advice, but I certainly can give a lot of information. I'll offer for this audience a free supplement evaluation, again, without giving medical advice, unless people come into my office. That's the way I can then take on from there. If they want in a detailed conversation, explanations of what's going on or whatever's happening to them, I would offer 15% off an initial conversation. I do Skype and phone work. I think, Connie, can you put the slide up about my contact information?
Yeah, it's here.
Do you see it?
Oh, wait a minute. No, it isn't. That's the offer, yeah.
Yeah.
I think she had it up there earlier.
Yeah,
but
just go back to here.
I know I'm going to get in line for that, for the Skype session.
Yes.
I am going to get in line for that.
Somebody wants to do some groups, I mean, I can have a conversation in groups. And then we have my contact information. Connie, she abandons me. She's finished.
I think she's
slide. Yeah, this is my contact information.
Okay.
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 I'll be happy to take questions if there are. I don't know if there are.
Well, I know I have a few, if you don't mind.
Make it simple.
Okay, I will. When you mentioned fish oil is a very important supplement, I've become allergic to all kinds of fish, and I'm wondering what you recommend that I do about that, since I guess I shouldn't take fish oil.
Well, there's krill oil, but that's also a problem for you, right?
Actually, I did get some krill oil recently, and it hasn't bothered me.
Well, so, you say, I don't personally believe krill oil replaces the fish oils. It has a different composition. One of them is better for cholesterol, which is another issue. One is better for something else, but it's a possibility. Cod liver oil has been used, but I think the vitamin A in it is too high. Too high vitamin A can be a problem in osteoporosis.
Okay.
So I think walnuts are good for omega-3s. Okay.
What about flaxseed oil? Does that take up the slack?
Oh, well, you have another hour. Flaxseed oil does not go into the good omegas.
Oh.
Some people can't convert it.
Okay.
And it rancid easily. Flax seeds are another issue. Flax seeds have what we call lignans, Lignans, and there are supplements with lignans which are very protective against breast cancer.
Okay.
So flax seeds, if you grind them yourselves and they're not getting rancid, are possible. Okay. It may not give you the same thing as the fish oils, but it's certainly something that's useful.
Yeah. Okay. All right, and I had another question over here. The vitamin D I just find so fascinating. Like I told you, I do supplement. Yeah, I just want to give you a little story here real quickly, because I'm sure you'll be able to discuss this a second. My husband and I lived our dream and went on our boat for 6 years, and I had a melanoma previously to that, so I was going to the university, and they said, by all means, wear sunscreen no matter what. You come out of the boat, cabin, have your sunscreen on. So that well, I used to be a good patient. I'm not so much anymore. But anyway, so I did. I wore sunscreen religiously for 6 years. And I got off the boat and promptly got a mantle cell lymphoma. And I'm just wondering, now this is probably something you can't say, oh yeah, that caused it, but I've kind of put two and two together myself and kind of came up with the fact that you do need the sun somewhat.
Well, it's a big myth. Actually, sun's been given a bad rap. If you have, not the height of the sun and a certain amount of time, it's okay. And there are a lot of people who say people staying out of the sun is a mistake, and there are others who disagree with it. But that's why vitamin D is so important, because it's tricky. I don't object to staying in the sun. Sunscreen itself may have carcinogenic stuff in it. Cosmetics, by the way, is a big issue.
Oh, really?
Be very careful with parabens and methylparabens. There's a whole bunch of things. And we're talking about nutrition that are carcinogenic. BPA, the bottles, the water bottles, have estrogenic properties.
Right.
I just saw something about antidepressants and cancer because they go into into weak estrogenic activity. If you look at your good estrogens and what they're being metabolized into, you can really probably change that, but that's another issue. I think that for most people, this is my belief, getting adequate vitamin D supplementation is probably the way to go because it's easier, you don't have to monitor it. And there's Michael Hollick is very well known in the vitamin D thing, and he's a big fan of that. So I don't want to make this a cult.
Yeah.
I'm making suggestions, and people have to explore it. Benjamin Franklin said, with all due respect, he who has himself for a lawyer has a fool for a client.
Right.
And so, we all need guidance.
Yeah.
You know why? I used to say to my pet when I was in my traditional practice, we can see this. So give them a piece of paper. We can see this, but we can't see this. I mean, we're so into our own stuff.
Yes.
That we can't have an objective opinion. The smartest of us.
Yeah.
And so when you're a lay person, you don't have all this information. How do you put it all together? It's overwhelming.
Yes, it is. It is. You just have to do the best you can do, and if there's wonderful doctors out there like yourself, give Dr. Jones a call. I know I'm going to. So, well, I think we're at the end of our hour. So, Dr. Jones, this was amazing. Thank you so much, and I know we will have you back on again.